Hello.
Hey, how are you?
All right. Well, it's a great pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm sorry I was a little late. Hang on a second. I want to get something. Got it. All right. God, where do you want to start?
Yeah, that's. I was wondering the same
and
thing.
what are you interested in?
Um, that's that's. Well, I'll give you a little bit of backstory of how this sort of came about.
Sure, that would be great.
My main occupation is I'm an architect, and I'm soon to be 59 years old, and but I got interested in psychedelic light shows probably like 2.5 years ago now.
Okay.
And so that kind of found my way into the Facebook group and things like that. And then I really had a kind of a strong interest in the analog kind of light show.
Yeah.
So obviously Joshua White's a huge hero of mine,
Yeah.
and he's very active in that group. And I really became intrigued by the photographs I'd seen of the Fillmore East.
Yeah.
Initially, it was the photographs of the light show kind of on the balcony, not really. I mean, if you don't know what's going on, it's kind of confusing.
Oh, tell me about it.
So it kind of just, having being an architect, I mean, it's like, I got to know more about this, so that kind of started this search of understanding how the back of the stage was set up.
Right.
And then that led to kind of seeing some more photographs about the Fillmore East, and not really understanding how that was laid out.
Right.
So then I kind of started doing my own research, and initially it was with I kind of started looking for like floor plans or something online, and
That's really interesting. I obviously that would make complete sense for you.
yeah.
You know, and it would not be something I would have ever thought of.
Well, yeah, I did, and it's been a very interesting journey.
Right.
Yeah. So and actually, yeah, I'm really glad I did, because there just wasn't that much out there, and
Right.
the information I did find, I think, was in danger of being lost.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I got some things documented, and you know, if I'm not the person to do more with it, somebody else will, maybe, hopefully. So,
No, and what you created is remarkable. It
oh, thank
really,
you.
really is.
I appreciate it.
Having walked that walk so many times that you take us on, and
Well, I tell you what, if somebody like you is saying that, then because I'd never even seen the building,
right.
uh, so that is very heartening, to think that someone like you said that it kind of took me back there. So,
We're changing time and space here. We're entering a parallel universe. I am interrupting this little interview with Keith because right at this point, I start talking about my life. Now, the problem is that this stuff happened 50 years ago. Now, Welcome to the Fillmore East, is a documentary about the place, and it has a certain style of truth to it, as told by the people who made the documentary. And there's about 8 or 10 minutes of how the place worked and a lot of good performances, and it's on YouTube. But let's go back to when I worked there so I can just set the scene for you before we proceed through the parallel dimension of time and space that Keith will be taking us back on. All right. So I joined the Fillmore East in 1968. I went to my show there. I was 20 years old. Okay. And I worked there till 1971 when I was 23 years old. And then with Joe's Lights for another year until 1973. And that's a long time ago. We're talking about 54 years ago. So, and 54 years, if you include the psychedelic era, is like 154 years to a regular person. Okay. So Keith is laughing because it's true. you know, as no less an authority, as Phil Lesh of the Grateful Dead once said, if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. So I'm going to be telling a lot of stuff. And I watched everything that I had said before, and I felt that I should be completely honest with you and that it's not accurate. Okay. It's the way I remember it. And it's the way over the years that people that I'm still friends with talk about it. And the stuff gets, well, what's the expression from John Ford's Liberty Valance? If the facts don't fit the legend, print the legend. Okay. In this case, if the facts don't fit the legend is a lot more fun. So I'll do the best I can. And, in the retelling over the years, I've been to so many Fillmore events because I'm a veteran of the place that we've had lots and lots of conversations, and I've had input from all these places, and I've read about it, and there's documentaries, and I did a movie about it called Get Crazy, and interviews, etc. So my telling of what the light show and the Fillmore is a mishmash of all of that stuff. And there's a thing in literature called the unreliable narrator, and you are looking at it. Okay, I am an unreliable narrator, and here's what Wikipedia says about an unreliable narrator: an untrustworthy storyteller, most often used in narratives with a first person point of view. That's me telling you, and Keith asking me all these questions. The unreliable narrator is either deliberately deceptive or unintentionally misguided. That's the story of my life, forcing the reader to question their credibility as a storyteller. All right. So it's kind of the way that I saw the world. And one thing that I really want to get across before we go into this long story about it. As a baby boomer and a member of the generation gap, brought up by well meaning parents in New Jersey, we all were hippies. We wanted to change the world. And there was a lot of pressure on me to get a career like a law school, etc. And I did not want to do that. I wanted to go to film school and I wanted to be an artist. And thus I was at this place at that point in your youth when I didn't know which way to go, right? Where my heart was or where I felt my responsibility was. And if I had not walked into the Fillmore East and started working there, I would not have seen that it's possible to be a responsible adult and be able to have your heart in the right place and yet also do something that makes sense for society. And surrounded by people like Josh White and Bill Graham, certainly, and Kiva Crystal and Kip Cohen and so forth. These people were adults and they put their heart and soul into putting on a great show every weekend. And they had money for rent. They were well dressed, and they were admirable people. And by their example, it set me on a path that I'm on today. And I've actually had the chance to tell them that, Bill Graham gave me the theater to make my student film, and Josh White lent me his 16 millimeter eclair, and the tech crew there, everyone gathered and helped each other out. And it was a really special time. That said, I'll do the best I can to tell you the way it was. Okay. So let's go back in time and space to where this whole story started. I grew up in New Jersey at a place called Fort Lee, which was directly across the river from the Bronx, literally 1 mile if you could fly across the river. Okay.
Mhm.
And we used to go into the city when I got to be older in high school. There was folk music playing at an amusement park in Fort Lee, and then the radio and all this stuff. I started getting, being a boomer, there was so much exciting music, and we used to go into the city to see some bands at a clubs and things. A club called the Cafe a Go-Go in the West Village,
Mhm.
which is where we saw a band called the Blues Project and the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. And I saw the original version with Mike Bloomfield and, folk groups like the folk rock groups like the Youngbloods, etc. And in my freshman year of college, I was not in film school yet. I was in Pennsylvania and would come in to see concerts at the at the club, and the thing was there was no rock press. Okay, this predates rock criticism to any degree. So you found out about this stuff through various means, and I happened to work in the radio station, so I would get to read Billboard, and I read these columns out of San Francisco. And anyway, somehow or other, I heard of the Jefferson Airplane. So I bought the first Jefferson Airplane album and bought the second one, which I realized was a great record. So I came in from the city and I saw the Jefferson Airplane at the Cafe Go-Go. Okay. Tom Wolfe was someone who was a cultural writer and wrote about things that no one else was writing about them, but did them in a style that was apt for the 60s.
Hmm.
In the way that Richard Lester took the filming of rock music to a new thing with the Beatles, Tom Wolfe took journalism to a new way with the way the 60s was working. And I love this stuff. And I'm at this school in Pennsylvania, and I used to go get the Sunday paper from New York because I was in Amish country, you know. And there was these swirly letters on the cover of a Herald Tribune in this article about something called an acid test. And I bought it. It's Tom Wolfe. And that's when I read about the whole acid culture in San Francisco. I had heard of Timothy Leary and all that, and I had actually read about some of this stuff in Ginsberg and Kerouac. But then in the middle of this article, there was this band called the Warlocks. That was the house band. And then by the next article, they were called the Grateful Dead. And then I read in Billboard that they had been signed to Warner Brothers, and I bought their first record, and it was not as good as I was hoped it would be. It was unlike anything else. There wasn't that thing in it that was in all those articles and people's reactions to it. So on the day I left Franklin and Marshall College to enroll in NYU Film School, I came home to New Jersey, and I this is beside the subject, but this will anchor you, okay? So I get to my house, and all my friends are waiting, and this is like, if you had to put up a statue to what was the ultimate boomer day of my life, this was it, okay? We all went into my bedroom, we closed the door, we turned down the lights, and we listened to Sergeant Pepper for the first time. And we listened to it all afternoon. And then we got in the car and we drove to New York City to the Cafe Go-Go and saw the Grateful Dead on their first tour. Okay. Oh, wow. And they were okay, you know. And during the course of that summer, we went to and we saw Country Joe and the Fish at colleges, but there was no venue in the city that was bigger than a nightclub. There was an old theater on the East Village, which turned out to be 4 blocks from where I ended up getting an apartment on 2nd Avenue, and that was called the Village Theater. And at the Village Theater, I saw The Doors, and in a really good show, and then I saw Cream.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was basically the Fillmore East with no trappings, you know. And basically a rock concert at that time was you turned on the lights before they start to play and you turned off the lights when they were done. And there was no light show. There was some lighting, not really. And what we were seeing out of San Francisco was all this light show stuff. Then a place opened called the Electric Circus, but that was essentially a nightclub with psychedelic lighting and very, very well done. Not a concert hall per se, although bands played there. And in my sophomore year, a place opened called the Anderson Theater. And that was on 2nd Avenue around 4th Street.
Okay.
So in this neighborhood, there was, on the East Village, there was like 3 theater structures that you could put shows in because it had been Yiddish Broadway. And so those theaters were used when Yiddish theater was a big thing, which was really large, and that's why there was a preponderance of kosher restaurants in the neighborhood, etc.
Hmm.
And when that disappeared, then it became a place that was cheaper than the West Village for beatniks to live. So on my street, a block and a half from me, lived Allen Ginsberg, and further east was Ed Sanders' Peace-Eye bookstore, and it was a place called the Psychedelicatessen, and that was sort of the Abby Hoffman lived in my building and not in my building. He went in and out, and there was hippies, but it wasn't as commercialized, but it was commercialized.
Okay.
So Anderson Theater took Josh White. I don't know if Josh has told you this. So Josh had done this show in Toronto with a very early version of the light show where they actually sat and watched the show.
Right.
And I think the Dead in the Airplane were on it, and Bill was involved with it, and that had gone well. And Bill was contemplating coming to New York, but the question was, what do you do in New York? Do you do another dance hall? Or do you do something that's more New York theatrical? So when these guys who were total thieves opened up the Anderson Theater, Bill flew in. Everyone who worked with Bill wanted him to open in New York. There was a pressure from people who knew from the business, and certainly from the music agency business. Was all of a sudden this was a business. You could book bands. Can you imagine?
Hmm.
And this guy named Frank Barcelona had to book the Beatles, and he booked them into Washington, D.C. on their first tour. And he called up the next day and said, how many tickets are left? How's it going? He goes, you should have called yesterday. They were gone in an hour. And he thought, this is he was like the junior guy. Give him the rock and roll. Frank Barcelona ended up booking the Led Zeppelin and the Who and the Bruce Springsteen. He became a huge powerhouse. Okay. So the Anderson had a version of the Joshua Light Show and a version of the structure of a Fillmore East show.
Hmm.
There was, if I remember correctly, there was a purple light on the screen and one light show effect. And the act that night, the headliner, was Big Brother and the Holding Company, and this was their first New York appearance. And obviously, because of now there was Rock Press, and we all heard about Monterey and so forth, there was a lot of excitement to see her, And I just will always remember silhouetted in the dark, her walking out against this purple screen.
Oh my gosh.
And then she goes up to the mic, and she had, I don't know if you've seen film of her, she had this cackle. That was her laugh.
I
And
think,
she
yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah, and she cackles and goes, New York, we're here. And they go into the first cut on the first album, combination of the two.
Uh-huh.
And the place exploded with that. They were really a punk band. They didn't play well, but they played like it was a punk band.
Gotcha. No,
And
that's interesting. I never heard her
yeah,
version that referred to her that way. So,
yeah, because it was all really rough, and the drummer's time wasn't perfect and stuff. It wasn't like I had seen earlier that year, Ike and Tina Turner. And that was the first time I'd seen a really professional band play rock music.
right.
Everyone was on the one. And then she ended the set with the Big Mama, her big number, Ball and Chain. And that was like, it's indescribable. If you've seen Monterey Pop, you've seen
Yeah,
it.
I haven't seen that one yet. I need to look that one up.
Okay. Well, that's her big drama. It's a Greek tragedy of lost love done in the style of electric blues, and her performance is unforgettable.
Hmm.
And when she goes off, they come back for an encore, and she says, well, we just recorded this afternoon, this song, so we may fuck it up, but let's go. And they played Piece of My Heart.
Oh my God.
So Bill Graham's in the audience, you know, and the reaction, and he goes, I think this can work. And
Yeah,
so,
it might.
you know, and because people were in seats and it didn't bother them.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
Now, here's the most interesting part from your point of view, I
Right.
think,
Uh-huh.
and something that I think is crucial to understanding what happened next. So, the theater that was open, which had more seats, was Commodore across the street, which was at that time called the Village Theater.
Hmm.
Uh, and he went over with some of his management people, and they realized that there was an entire backstage area that was professional
Mm-hmm.
because they put on Yiddish theater. So that meant that they had pipes hung above and a counterweight system.
Okay.
So you could raise lower stuff like a real theater.
Right.
You didn't have there. They had 2,700 seats. It had a narrowish lobby to get in that opened up, you know, and had a balcony and everything. It was a theater,
Right.
you know, and it had not really, except for do concerts. Now, so Bill decides, so he's going to open this theater in 6 weeks. Now, NYU is in the same neighborhood, my film school classes and stuff.
Okay.
And right, okay, the NYU Drama School, the NYU Theater Arts School, that is, to put it in your terms, the architects of putting on theatrical productions
Mm-hmm.
are all these people like in college, that 60s energy.
It's amazing.
And they are exactly this far from the Fillmore East, literally 1 foot next door.
Wow.
And the professors were ex-students. None of them could get hired on Broadway because Broadway was set in its ways and was seniority. What's going on next door? Let's go over and take a look. And they end up being hired. And this confluence of things where people who are discovering new sound systems, because
Mm-hmm.
nobody had made a rock and roll sound system per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lighting for theatrical productions, some of which had fallen a little bit into jazz clubs. All this stuff is all of a sudden 1 foot away. And the people who were there are geniuses, right?
Mm-hmm.
If imagine the level of Scorsese at NYU, but in a Texas, because it was my teacher there. That's the level of professors in theater. And they sit down with Bill Graham and everything, and they go, and you know, what are we going to do? What do you want to do here? Go, well, the fly system works. Let's clean that up and do that. And we got to do something about the sound. We can put a sound system in, you know, on the first floor, but we need to do it so that it's not like Shea State. Remember, the Beatles and all these bands, when they played these stadiums,
Mm-hmm.
would end up their vocals and their band would be on the same thing that they say at second base, you know,
Right.
in these you know, metallic sounds, or they had a sound system that was put together from political rallies and things like that, which was loud, but you were trying to bludgeon, you know, from the first floor out, you know. So they said, you know, we got all the way up in the balcony, and this sound, see, they knew this stuff. The sound waves are just going to get trapped below the balcony. You know, it's going to go straight out. You've seen, you know what the drawings are. They
Yeah,
would get
no, I
trapped
do.
under.
Yeah, yep, right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so somebody said, well, we got to hang another sound system from the ceiling. And everyone went, that's fucking nuts. And they thought about it. They went up in the ceiling and they said, yeah, we can do this. So they did the first sound system that was raised up. Now you cannot go to a concert now without seeing a sound system hung in the air because it was at the same height as the balcony and reached up there. It also allowed you to play the sound system downstairs
Mm-hmm.
at a lower level.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came up with yeah.
I'm imagining it was probably placed just high enough so he didn't block anybody's view. Is that probably right? Or was it all?
Correct.
Yeah, that
Correct.
makes sense. Because
Yeah, it
some of
was
those,
about 40 feet up. They raised that, and then they came up with the thought, they're Broadway people. So they do cues and things.
Mhm.
And their first thought, being professionals and not hippies from San Francisco, how do we communicate with each other? Because their thought is during a show, it's got to look professional. It was never like, just let's, it's groovy. And that was not their mode, although they were as hip and groovy as anyone on the planet. So they came up with the idea of a sound system that could be heard over rock music.
Hmm.
Think about it. No one had thought of that before.
Yeah, that's incredible innovation. Yes.
Yes. And so they ended up, the lighting designer was a guy by the name of Chip Monk. And Chip had theatrical experience, but he'd also been the lighting designer at the Newport Folk Festival and Jazz Festival, and had worked in various clubs in New York City,
Mhm.
big famous clubs. And the thought was, let's just do theatrical lighting. And Chip said, well, why don't we do like it's a show, in the sense of I'll set different colors for the bands and we'll mark them on the stage. No one had done this before. Okay. We'll mark where the mics go, and we'll then set the lights to the mics. It sounds pretty rudimentary.
Mhm.
Right? And the singers will have to stand at the mics, and I will aim my lights at the singers. And we will have spotlights, and we'll use the projection booth in the back to put 3 spotlights.
Okay.
And since I can communicate with them, I can have them change colors during the show. So a song can start in one color and go to another, and it will be improvised. And that was the idea. And then Josh would do his version of that
Hmm.
during the show.
Right.
And they came up with the last minute the idea of, say, welcome to Fillmore East on a slide. The light show through Josh became a voice.
Hmm.
It was the active voice of the personality of the theater. It said welcome when you came in.
Mhm.
When a band would start to play, their name came up on the screen. I mean, how slick was that? So what would happen would be lights go down, light show screen goes to dark. That was all purple. Okay. The band would come out in silhouette, no light on them.
Hmm.
They'd take their final last swing, but sound checks at the Fillmore East were not fuck arounds. You were marked on the stage. Everything was set. Everyone knew what the settings on the amps were. The guitar stands were ready, or the band would carry it on. The chords were exactly where they should be.
Hmm.
And then the stage was mopped and repainted flat black. So it looked really good, because you had people in the balcony looking down.
Right. Right.
And you didn't want dirty stage bouncing up stray light into people's faces. It was going to be pro.
That's fascinating.
And the band would stand there in silhouette, and Bill Graham would say something like, 4 guys and one great, great broad, big brother in the holding company. And on the screen would be their name, and we would watch, because we saw the rehearsal, who was the one who led the band. Look for his countdown, and everyone go, on the 1, boom. And that's what it was. So throughout the show, as you got to know the bands, you knew the structure of each song.
Mhm.
So in the position that Josh was in the light show, the mixer, he would change lights according to the structure of the song. Okay. Now, Josh did that somewhat. Okay. What Josh was absolutely great at was, because he's a funny guy, being the voice of the Fillmore East on the screen between the acts. He would put up these funny slides, and he would put up color test, tell us if you can see these colors, applaud. And of course, because everyone's stoned, he goes, yellow, and it would be red. Blue, and it would be green. You know, stuff like that. And then we'd run a short or a cartoon between the second and the third acts.
Right.
And the reason for that was people actually took acid and things before they went to have it hit before the headliner came on, or have it hit before the second band came on. So they were really in the middle of an acid trip. It's just like theater. So you didn't want them to just sit in the dark, quite honestly, right? So we started running independent shorts and Looney Tunes.
It's hilarious.
And, so you'd have Roadrunner, but of course, you know, if Wile E. Coyote is falling, right, sound guys would ride the sound, right? And it would get louder, and when he hit the ground, it would be full rock and roll volume, and Josh would hit the strobe. So it was cartoons plus. And so that was kind of the initial structure was kind of like Saturday Night Live. They found it right away and now was refining it.
That's amazing.
And as the light show became more complicated in what they could do, it became more able to do more things and follow the music, etc.
Okay.
At around the point of Woodstock, and I don't know how much Josh talked to you about this, Josh started getting disillusioned with the whole thing. Okay. And during the shows, it was never really as much interest to him as the people who are doing the effects. He did it, but he did it in a way, and this is not to put him down because no one had done this before, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It was like this song has this set of effects, and that song has that set of effects.
Gotcha.
And then and it was a lot of work. You have to be standing there and do this. So this guy, Kenny, came along, who was an assistant in the light show, and Kenny was a spacey guy. And Kenny thought they should blend the effects during shows, that they should follow the music more closely and morph from one thing to another and make it one big flowing thing. And that particularly started working really well because the Grateful Dead started playing there every 3 months, and all the bands, because Long Jams was part of it. And Kenny all of a sudden became the guy that did the headliner bands. And so Josh would do the beginning, and it was great for Josh because he was great at bringing the press and running the show and everything. And the mixer, the people doing the effects, liked having Kenny be the mixer. The mixer was a guy in the center who had a set of dimmer boards.
Okay.
And that's how dimmer boards, big handle ones for strips of one color.
Right.
And a micro one for the different projectors that you could turn up and down.
Gotcha.
He had a movie projector access, so you could have a full screen film going and the effects on top of it. You had a little, and so you could go, you could zoom down to the place of film you wanted, or re-edit it, because if you knew the band set, you knew the order, so you could move your film around on the big reel.
Gotcha.
And we had a loop projector, which was a small 16 millimeter projector. We had a bunch of loops, things that repeated over and over again. Kenny and Josh would run the names of the bands. They had it on a wall behind them, which you portray.
Yep.
And they had a projector that would be bouncing off of a Mylar mirror that was curved. And that's how you got that movement. The slide would go into this Mylar, which would cause it to slip and slide all over the screen. And thus, as part of your display, there would be a singular slide of all the different patterns that all the different parts of the light show had. And I reinforced that. So everyone had a common source of images that were abstracted.
Gotcha.
Icon, black and white, so that we could integrate at times,
right,
and give it a unified vision. And then when Kenny left the show during the summer of, well, he lasted anyway. Kenny's personality and the seriousness in which he took work was an issue, and they asked me to join because I was working on the stage crew. So to back up just a little bit, I went to the first show at the Fillmore East, and I went every week after that. So I saw the next band I saw there was the Doors. I saw Hendrix with the opening band was Sly and the Family Stone. I saw Blue Cheer, terrible band. I saw Traffic. I saw the Who a year before Tommy, when and the light show appeared in my student film. And so Josh, it was a real community. Okay. Josh lent me his 16 millimeter camera to shoot my student film with. He had an Eclair. Bill gave me the use of the theater as a location. When I ran into people on the stage crew and the tech crew worked for free to run the theater when I was shooting, or come with me to a location and run the electricity for me. It was that kind of sense of it. And the Fillmore was a place that we would go in and out of, and I was an usher first. And I loved being an usher because I got to see every show, and I got to know the people in the lobby. Now, did you ever see Rock and Roll High School?
When I started reading about you, I did see it. Well, I think I was in high school when I saw it, but I'm going to watch it again.
The main character of the woman, Riff Randall, is based on real young women who used to come to shows at the Fillmore that I'd see week after week because I was an usher, and we became friends and we talked. So that was the inspiration.
Gotcha.
And the sophistication, or my view of how a concert should go, and the emphasis came from that. So the way you have the drawing and you're at the lobby and the seats are in front of you, I was at the top of the aisle.
Okay.
Because I was good at saying, go down to the left, go down to the right, but we rotated during the show because everyone would love one band. And so you'd rotate, so you would be in a better down front to see your favorite band on the late show. But, when it's the Led Zeppelin, everyone wants to be there. So you all drew straws and I got the Zeppelin, for Saturday night. Okay, here's how it worked. Friday afternoon, there'd be a sound check, and then Friday night, early show would be the excitement of all these bands playing the Fillmore East, and they'd do a really good show. And then in between shows, the atmosphere would start working on them. They were reacting what the Park was. We can hear each other, I don't know how these guys know what we're going to do next, but man, when I go to the mic, there's a spotlight on me. When he takes a solo, it's right on his hands,
That is really, no, I don't think I fully comprehended that, but
yes. And, and all of a sudden that we finish our set and it goes black and our name goes up on the screen. And when they go off, it fades out. And when they're about to come back on, the guy on the stage left would say, okay, get ready. Here they come. And on would come the name and the place would go crazy. And as they walked out, it would glow on the stage. And then when they did the countdown, bang, we go, So it was very, very, it made you wonder, how the fuck did they know this was going to happen in this order? When they played a band, name a band from that period that you like.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, obviously, Jimi Hendrix. The Who. I could go on and on. The Doors.
Okay, so let's talk about the Who. Okay, we did a full production of Tommy on the screen. We followed the story of Tommy with images on the screen. For instance, Tommy's face was an image, and when Tommy breaks the mirror, we had Tom Shoesmith, the guy at the very top, had a slide of the character we had decided that was taken by Amelie Rothschild. See this book? This is the Rosetta Stone. This is Amelie Rothschild's record of what happened at the Fillmore East. And there's actually about 15,000 photos that she took there, and she has all the negatives. And she was just someone who walked in the door and thought that she would take pictures. And they had one of her pictures that she had taken actually on the wall. So Amelie's contribution, I really want to set this up because we've been talking about all different aspects of the light shows, etc. Amelie's photos and the Fillmore East are forever tied together. Her photos are ubiquitous. You cannot think of anything about the Fillmore East without her images, and we've seen a lot of them throughout this piece. And it's not just that she was the house photographer. She was a creative member and a big booster of the tech crew, which is where she spent a lot of time with the tech wizards and stuff. And she was fascinated by all of that, and she took part in all of that. And her contributions to the Joshua Light Show are really important. All the film that you saw on the screen when you came to see a show was shot by Amelie. So when you saw this giant train coming around the bend at the beginning of the Allman Brothers, or when the Dead sang riding that train, Amelie shot that. When you were going down a country road, and Taj Mahal is singing, "Gone up the country, gonna paint my mailbox blue," and stuff was flying around the screen on this road, Amelie shot that. She also shot bridges going by, and she had the idea of filming an oscilloscope. And this oscilloscope thing, if Jimi Hendrix was playing Foxy Lady and you put up that oscilloscope, you thought it was tied together with his guitar. And all these visual effects, and she really pushed that when Bill Graham announced in October of 1969 that the Who were going to be there for 5 nights of doing Tommy, and that was going to be the program and call it Tommy, she said, then let's really make it about Tommy. And she convinced Bill and everyone to invest $5,000 into a production that was all sold out. He did not have to do it, And together with the Joshua Light Show, they added a bigger screen and they told the story of Tommy on the screen. And she supplied the images, and she did a wonderful multi-layer imagery of Cecily from the Light Show that became the Acid Queen sequence. And those images live forever because every time Santana played Black Magic Woman, I would reach for that and put that on the screen. And so her contribution is really, really immense. And although her name's on everything, etc., I just want to make sure that everyone knows what a creative person was. She is. She lives in Italy now, in Florence, and how important she was to the overall look and style of the place, and in preserving all of this. I have several of her photos, Stan, and every once in a while she'll find something of me that she'll add to it, and you'll get to those later. So this is a slight interruption to give you everyone a sense of how important she was to the place. Back to the Light Show story that we decided was Tommy. You'd seen him throughout the show and various things and lighting going around him and so forth. And all of a sudden his face appears on the screen. Mm-hmm. Tom had a mirror mounted on a sheet of rubber. Okay.
Right.
And his slide projector was aimed at the mirror, so the slide of Tommy was on the screen. And when the Who say, "Can I crack the mirror?" all that, Tom would take a mallet and from behind would hit the mirror, and it was because it was glued, it would break and bounce back into position with all the cracks.
Okay, because I read somebody thought that he actually broke the mirror during the show.
Yes,
it gave the effect of that, but there wasn't glass all over the place.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it may have a little bit, but
but yeah.
No, that was not the idea.
That clarifies that. Yeah.
Yeah, you wanted it to reform with all.
No, I can totally visualize that. Yes.
Yeah.
Very
so
cool.
there was that going on. So, but this Friday Night Late Show now, the band would go, fuck, this is happening, you know. We don't have to do shit except be good, and we can play as long as we want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the Friday Night Late Shows would be really, really good. And then the bands would party too much. So Saturday Night Early Show would be like the wake up show. But Saturday Night Late Show was strap in, we're off, you know, and they'd end about 5 a.m. And so if you go through the greatest live recordings of the Fillmore East, Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore East, most ones, you know, Who, etc., those are inevitably 75% Saturday Night Late Show
Hmm.
and 25% of Friday Night Late Show.
Interesting.
The Saturday
Okay.
Night Late Show, everybody reached for the stars. And by then, if you were on the lighting team and you were in the light show, you knew these songs. I had to know the songs intimately and Kenny did, so we could turn the things on and off and plan the show on the run.
Mm-hmm.
But not everyone in the show knew the song. But when they would do it, they knew it. This is the fourth time they're seeing it in a weekend. So we would really do a lot of amazing stuff. Well, you remember a band called Humble Pie?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they had this, I think it was called Walk on Gilded Splinters or something. They had this long jam song,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it would build and build and build. And we knew this song because they'd been there a bunch of times. So we would build with them. But we also knew that it would come right back down to this very quiet, slow solo lick
Mm-hmm.
on Peter Frampton's guitar. And so what we would do, the person in charge of lighting, there was three of them. The first one was Chipmunk. Then there was Candace Brightman, who was great and ended up being the lighting designer for the Grateful Dead for the next 30 years. Arthur Shafransky, who got taken away from us by the Pink Floyd, changed his name to Arthur Max, and now does the production designing of all of Ridley Scott's movies. Yeah, we had some heavyweights, you know, a lot of talent there. So Humble Pie are building and building, and Arthur, whoever it was, would say, okay, he'd say, Alan or Jonathan, whatever was it, sneak, get ready. I want a really tight beam of blue on Peter Frampton's hands. Okay. And on a countdown, I'll tell you when to sneak it in. So we say, and it'll be a countdown from 4, 4, 3, and then you'd sneak in 2, 1, black, everybody. And boom, the stage would go black, and there'd be one blue dot on Peter Frampton's hands. Okay. And the audience would go, oh, you know. You know, so imagine the same thing if it's Whipping Post and that band is in its full roar, peaking, and all of a sudden it goes, and it's a red spotlight on Greg singing, sometimes I feel, and then everything kicks in again. That's the kind of level of magic we were going for.
Wow.
And I mean, there was all these tricks we learned in lighting instruments out in the house, how to do things that complemented the light show. And so Saturday Night Late Show was the one. Now on weekends, early on, the tech crew would come in and tune the theater till they got it the way they wanted it. So they brought in all these different type of noise generators, pink and white and gray noise, because that's what they were learning in school about how you measure noise reflections and things like that.
Noise generator. So there were like speakers set up in various places?
On the stage.
Okay.
And through the sound system from the stage, so they can communicate. And out would come this and at different frequencies. And they had a dB meter back there and all spread out across the theater, finding dead spots, finding where it echoed, reflected, and they would hang padding to shape the sound of the theater. So it got the problems of sound going into an overhang. They solved that as best they could by padding the ceiling, so you didn't have a wave that was broken, a sound wave broken. The other thing was the whole back of the underneath the balcony was glass, so you had a reflective surface, and so things like that. They did the best they could to solve it, so that anywhere you stood in the theater, you got as pretty good sound as rock and roll can do. As a matter of fact, I just got this. This is Frank Zappa and the Mothers. The last weekend they played the Fillmore East. Um, this is June 5th and 6th, 1971. It's so beautifully recorded.
Hmm.
And it was just another recording to us. I mean, Eddie Kramer mixed it, he mixed all the Hendrix records, and the sound and the difficulty of the music. This is not 10 years after Bashing Going Home. This is complicated oratorios and things like that, and it sounds fantastic. And I can't believe that over the course of that weekend, 10,000 kids sat through this stuff and loved it. It's so much more sophisticated than anything you hear in popular music. I mean, he was a big band. He was famous. Now you got to go to listener sponsored radio to hear something sort of like this. I don't want to sound like an get off my lawn old man, but
No, I understand.
Okay.
The glass in the back, was that added during the Bill Graham?
No, that was always there.
Was it really? Okay.
Yeah, and they never took it out.
Okay.
I don't know why. But what was cool about it is that if you were on stage, you could see yourself reflected brightly in that glass.
Interesting. Oh.
I mean, it was far away.
Right.
Okay, so I joined the light show in June of 70. They asked me because they were expanding. Josh had left. There was a thing where Josh was not as interested in the pattern of what his life had become with the Fillmore East. I mean, I'm speaking for Josh, but in conversations with him, this is what he's told me. And he wanted to do other things, and he was interested in television production and other things. And the light show favored Kenny as the person who was running during the show. And Josh was just not into running during the show, so Kenny was the guy. And so they switched over and they bought out Josh, and Josh kept the name. In retrospect, it would have been much better if everyone was a little more mature and savvy if they could have kept the name. The Joshua Light Show was a great name, and made Josh worked it out. So it was still, and Josh was on the board of directors or whatever. And the light show was its own thing within that. But no one was that savvy. The amount of firepower coming off the stage from the Joshua Light Show was awesome, right? Those overhead projectors for the Joshua Light Show were built by Tom Shoesmith and Bill Schwarzbach. They are made out of aluminum, and they had aircraft landing lights in them. Those fuckers were like 15,000 watts, right? And so everything was like a hot rod. Every part of it had been refined, but never put in a box. But every element was made and sophisticated. So every time we had to break it down and put it back together, it's like, oh shit, we had to put our Swiss watch back together again. And our Swiss watch weighs 2 tons. So, for example, there was so much power in these overhead projectors that the liquids would heat up. And that became part of there was nothing that we did that wasn't utilized. Mm-hmm. So the hotter the liquids would go. So if you had, one thing was black water with clear mineral oil in it, and you squished it. Mm-hmm. And you got all these shapes. So you could do it really fast, or you could let it go and it would start evolving this way. But if you kept going, the black water would get hotter and hotter and hotter. And if you knew that Santana was taking a drum solo, you might say to me, I would probably say, okay, this is Soul Sacrifice, you know, get ready for a drum solo, Cecily or Bill. And I turned them down. They'd put a piece of cardboard over it, over the plate, and I turn it up to all the way. So it wouldn't go out on the screen, but it would start to get really hot till it was boiling.
Hmm.
And then when the solo started, I'd bring them up, and every bit of vibration from the stage would cause a bubble to go up in perfect time. So there was a variety of effects. When the Grateful Dead played Dark Star, Bill had this sheet of glass, and he would pour liquid down it. First a dark blue. So we had oil, glycerin, alcohol, and water, all with aniline dyes in the purest colors. That Cecily, who was a real artist, Bill was a real good mechanic stuff and good at light show, but Cecily was a true artist, as was Tom. And Cecily made those oils and refined them so that there was not one little bit of impurity, because that would get blown up on the screen, and the colors were great, and that was a thing she did. So the oils would go down, and have you ever seen photography of cities and rivers from the air where they're checking the temperature of things and they're all different colors?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it would look like. So as the Dead started Dark Star, Tom would be doing some smoky shape, and then the whole screen would slowly start turning dark blue. And that would be Bill pouring oil down this until the sheet of glass got hot. And then as they do the lick, on would come a little yellow oil, and it would fall. And of course, if you're doing Dark Star, you're at 2 a.m, and you're high. and now it just feels like it's going along with it,
Right.
And then he'd add the alcohol, which would cause the alcohol would evaporate and cause all these different shapes. And you're literally pouring a gallon of oil away that's all been stuff during the course of sometimes we did 32-minute Dark Stars, and the lighting crew would turn off all the lights on the Dead. And you just have the band silhouetted against this flowing thing. And that's when people talk about, the Fillmore at its ultimate, and then Tom might do a shape on top of it, and for instance, one of our great numbers, whenever the Allman Brothers came, we were at our best, because we knew their music and they improvised, but they were very tight about when the solo was over and back into the chorus. You've heard live at the Fillmore East,
Yep.
how tight that is. So we would always match those countdowns, and switch. Plus their songs had such a sharp arrangements. So when they do drum breaks, we were right there with them with another effect just for the drum breaks, and bump, and we go into something else. And whenever they played the theme of Elizabeth Reed, this big shiny turning thing would happen and so forth. So now we are reaching the end. It is the last Saturday night of the Fillmore East, and it is a show. Okay, when they say in Spinal Tap, turn it up to 11?
Oh, yeah.
We were at a 12, okay? And Allman Brothers were at a 12. It was one of the great shows, and they are killing it during Whipping Post. And it's like 3 a.m., and we know they're not going to stop at the end of Whipping Post, because you could just tell that they were going to go into something else. And we realized they're probably going to go into Mountain Jam. First there is a mountain, then there is a mountain, then there is. Now everybody is focused, and because Whipping Post is so centric to Dwayne and Greg, that was where the attention and the lighting was. So there was a mirror ball in the ceiling of the Fillmore East that was never used. It was too corny, but it had been there since the 30s. And somebody said, let's use the mirror ball tonight. Let's find just the right moment and use the mirror ball, but kill all the lights in the theater except the mirror ball. So they finish and they go boom with the crash of and you can hear it on the live records. Finish whipping post, which is like ultra drama. And now, as quietly, we hear the lick. First there is a mountain, then the little picking around till the band all fuss. And now we've got little smoky shapes, moving around the screen and letting them build them. And when the whole band comes in, we kill all the lights and the spotlights hit the mirror ball, and there's 10,000 dots of light spinning around the theater. So now the focus isn't on the stage anymore. It's on the wall. So the theater feels like it went from here to like infinite. Audience screams. And into this, right across the white show screen, there are all these hundreds of dots of light. As the band is playing this lovely melody, and Tom had a slide of a bird. And do you know about the bird slide or any of the?
I mean, I've heard an account of the
Okay.
the mirror ball, but and yeah, there was some mention of a bird flying around the screen, but
yeah, okay.
I can't picture what the slide looked like or anything.
Okay, so what he had was this. He had a slide projector that he used, a couple of them up there, and he had different reflective things. One of them was a photographic mirror made out of metal.
Okay.
That was perfectly mirrored, and you could bend it. And he'd practice. So if it was a snowflake shape, he could make it spin and do all kinds of things and make it float all above the screen.
Wow.
Okay. But to make it not look flat, make it look three-dimensional, he took it slightly out of focus. Okay.
Right.
And he had a wheel in front of the lens where the light came out that was like my fingers, spokes. Okay. And that wheel would break up the light. So it gave the appearance of surface movement, like the feathers.
That's incredible.
I mean, really, I'm telling you, this was. And right as the repeat of the chorus comes in, and everyone that's now screamed, right? And now they're going around, they're going to come back, and that white bird flew up into the sky. And we all yelled, Tom, you were supposed to, not do that. And then now it goes, oh, fuck you, Tom. It's so gorgeous. So, and there was all different effects with all different names. And everyone on the crew knew that if we said, let's do an Orange Julius, what that meant, let's do Metal Man, there was things that we all knew. There was okay, imagine a metallic piece of pipe, thin. And at the end of it is a 1,500 watt or 1,200 watt light bulb for a projector, just sitting on the end in a plug. Right? Just bald light power. Okay. Attached to a foot pedal that was like a dimmer switch that when you hit it, it would go on, and if you took your foot off it, it would go down. Okay. Tom had this. It looked like a giant half circle, or a half ball. Took a ball, cut it in half, but the whole inside is a perfect mirror. And he put a handle on the back of it. Okay. So he would take the bulb, put it a certain distance in it, turn it on, and pull it, and take his foot off it. So what would happen is a circle of light would appear and explode like you threw a rock in a stream.
So that was a custom made piece, that reflector, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I've heard mention of it, and I thought it was something you found somewhere or something, but he made it.
Maybe he did. No, it wasn't made for him. He adapted it.
Well, that's what I meant.
Okay, so Santana's music?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that song Jingo. Jingo, go bah.
Oh, wow.
Jingo, go bah. Go bah. And when he did that, from the front, the operators on the spotlight on Carlos, for instance, would pull back the trombone, which is a thing that changes the size of your beam of light coming out. And they put the shutter on. So you'd have from him a beam of light that exploded out. And we got real good at this.
That's incredible. So did you, I assume you were practicing during the week as well, or
No,
no? It's
no.
all,
I mean, I would collect images and talk to Cecily because she made the images. And
right,
sometimes I would ask if I could go out and get something or film something,
okay,
you know. But it was everyone knew the music pretty well. And when I became the chief mixer on the light show after Kenny left,
right,
it became pretty clear that they could trust me to, they had to, once we understood everyone's role,
right.
and there were certain things I was over mixing and changing too much, and they wanted to make the transitions with their liquids and so forth. Once, and Cecily was very articulate about it, and it's so arcane, you know. When I talk about it now, it's like so arcane. I mean, her ability to, you had a flat plate of a clock face that she had to find, that she
Mhm,
bought,
mhm.
and you had a curved one, and you put your water and oil in between, and she was able to do these shapes. So I could ask for shapes, and then she would turn it off, change the lens, bounce that off of a mirror, and that shape would reappear spinning, but
Mm,
hundreds of them on top of each other.
mhm.
So that's how you would progress. So I may say, okay, water plate, give me a red water plate, you know, and we'll start on that, you know, and it would start, and then there'd be a solo, and Tom would take the solo and say, okay, go to a wide angle lens, and we'd come back for the final chorus, and she would be with that same shape full screen. And because I came from a narrative film background, that was my inclination. I was always trying to give it closure, not be not be random, but of course it's happening live in front of you.
Mhm.
So it's like a jazz group. You know the chord changes. You're not going to
Right.
play it the same each time. And then when we would do classical concerts, I would study the music and make up charts of what light show instruments went together that made me feel like this music. And I'd have to memorize the music and make the changes to the music, you know. And we did Bach organ recitals, we did Scriabin's piano recitals. We went to Indianapolis, performed with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra.
Joe's Lights did all of this, or
Yes.
wow,
And so if we had had the Joshua Light Show name, we would not be, it would not be gone, you know. And because when we went to Indianapolis, when I tell you what we did, you would say, you didn't do that in New York? We did the Brandenburg Concertos, number 5, which is very bubbly and bright and looks gorgeous. And then we did the ballet Petrushka by Stravinsky. And Tom came up with the idea that we should do the ballet on the screen, all the entrances from the ballet, and we should take the shapes that are um, Petrushka is one of the ballets where the characters are so well known that they have imagery related to them. So
mhm.
Petrushka is the clown. So we use the kind of diamond shapes of a clown. And then there's the princess, and she had a shape. And then there's the Moor. So we used imagery that signified that. You could, and they made the entrances and did the light shows and where they're dancing together on the screen, just like the ballet.
So this must have all been after the Fillmore East, right?
Yes, I, maybe.
Or maybe
Yes,
you did,
I can't quite remember. You know,
because I do remember
I
hearing that there was a period where you went to Canada for a while.
yes, that was in the summer of '70.
Okay, but other
Uh,
than that, you were pretty
yeah,
much
and
light
that
show.
didn't work out well. No one came, but if we had been the Joshua Light Show doing that, it would have come.
Gotcha. Okay.
We were like in an exhibit, and we were there for too long, et cetera, and we're all broke. I mean, and in London, we were at a place called the Rainbow Theater. And
Mhm.
then when the Dead came, we did shows with the Dead. We did some fantastic shows at the Rainbow with the Who
Mm.
at the moment where the Who's next album came out. So we heard Bob O'Reilly for the first time in a rehearsal, and we were doing Bob O'Reilly that night, you
Oh my
know,
gosh, that would be
fooled again, you know.
that
And
that that is like light show inspiration. I can
oh my God, can you imagine hearing that music and riding that music through it,
Yeah, there'd be all kinds of like visual images that could go
Oh,
through your
yeah,
head for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the things we did was we had this black and white film that Josh was so smart, innovative. So he took this black and white film, and he took a Dremel tool. You know what that is? Like a
Yeah,
grinding
yeah, yeah.
tool
Mhm.
and a couple of sharp things, and he let it go through the projector and scratched it and did it in different rhythms. So this
Right.
thing had scratches and stuff. But when you played that during Santana, it was like that's the whole band. Everything looked like it was the multiple rhythms.
And then I guess that had color wheels in front of it too.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so again, when you have a band doing fast solos,
Right.
I turn that on and then I would go with a black and white plate or whatever, you know.
Yeah. I can't imagine what that was like. I mean, well, me just kind of working on light shows myself, that was always yeah, it was like you described, sometimes the mistakes kind of lead to the new innovations and things like that.
Yes.
So there was a
Let
lot
me
of,
see if I can find my oh here it is. Okay. Now let me see. All right, I'm gonna share this with you. That's me.
great photo.
That's me on the light show platform. I'm holding the film projector that does the loops.
Okay, so that's a 16 millimeter projector, I guess.
Right. So I'm going to talk in terms of camera right and camera left. Okay.
Okay, all right,
Camera left, you see the back of these boxes.
right, correct.
That's the dimmer boards.
Okay,
The bottom one is the one that's a mechanical dimmer board, like an old theatrical one.
right.
And that would turn on the big broad lights that would just color the screen in a red, yellow, or blue color wash or
Mhm.
green. Above that are the microprocessors, and that would turn the projectors on and off. And above that, that board, that black board, that would have dimmers that controlled the speed of all the motors of things that were turning.
Okay.
So I can control that. Oh, that's Pigpen. There's Dwayne Allman on stage.
Uh-huh.
This is Taj Mahal and the tuba band.
Great photo.
Zappa, Bill Graham at rest.
Wow, I haven't seen any of these photos, and I think I've seen everything that's
Okay.
available on the internet. So these are awesome. I love that. That is
That's me at the board. So there you see the little hand ones. Everything's taped together. The row at the top of the circular ones, those are the ones that control the speed of the motors. And
okay.
just below it, you see it's got numbers on it and everything and little sliders.
Those dimmers
Those are
were those the Variacs? Is that what they're called? Or
yes, exactly.
okay, yeah.
Shit, I haven't heard that term in a while.
Well,
Very.
I
You just
spent a
made
lot
my
of time
day.
on the Facebook site. So.
You just fucking made my day. And so the little dimmers below that was what controlled Tom and Cecily and the bright, not Tom, Cecily, Bill, and the other light operator.
Okay.
That controlled their instruments. And
Yeah.
below it are the big mechanical dimmers.
Gotcha.
There is the liquid being put, and that's the circular mirror that you reflect the stuff off of.
Oh wow.
And that mirror would turn
Yep.
according to the speed set by the person who's running the machine.
I mean, are those they're just kind of random mirrors that are probably put on some flexible sheet or something?
Yes, we did them in sheets, but as we went along, we had different versions. We saw what would give us different effects.
Okay.
And sometimes we wanted a scattered random effect, and one of those would be better for that. Other times you wanted a symmetry.
Hmm.
So what they would do is they would take some kind of foam
Mm-hmm.
and make the surface with the foam the way they wanted it.
Gotcha.
And then they glue sheets of tiny mirrors.
Okay.
Or it would be a soft surface and you'd cover it with Mylar and with push pins. You tack the Mylar down and make curves in the Mylar so that you had this kind of effect.
Wow.
Johnny Winter, Ray Charles. That is the roadies for the Dead. The guy with the guitar's
Yeah,
name is Ramrod, and the guy at the drums is Steve Parrish. And Steve is still around.
that's good.
There we are with the Dead.
Oh God, I love that photo.
So what you got here is on the screen, those things that look like worms,
Yeah,
those are slide projectors
yeah,
of high con black and white slides.
right.
And on the sides of, if you look in the photos, on the far ends of the light show platform is a bunch of slide projectors
Okay.
with a color wheel in front of it. So the colors would blink depending on how fast you turn the motor on the wheel. And which was an okay effect, but limited,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now the swirly stuff in the center that looks like smoke,
Right.
that's Tom Shoesmith.
Okay.
I don't know how fast he's going because I don't know the song.
Right.
And the sign is made by the light show by a guy by the name of Ben Haller. And Ben was like our construction guy, and he built it out of his shop on Third Avenue. And he built the word dead first.
Yeah.
All right. And he
Uh-huh.
took it out on the street to test it, see what it looked like. And it just was like bringing it up and down. Now, that part of Third Avenue is the Bowery. So a lot of drunken bums are like seeing the word dead flash. And the Dead eventually took that sign and we could lower it and raise it during the show.
So that it was a physical sign that was.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was,
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
physical sign and beautifully cut lettering.
Were those light
And
bulbs on there, or
yes,
okay, all right,
exactly.
gotcha.
So it was a three-dimensional thing that would come down during the show or whatever, you know.
Beautiful. Oh, I love
That's
that.
one of the roadies. Okay, that is Taj Mahal, camera right, Howard Johnson of the tubas, and the light show behind. And I would say that was a Cecily or Bill plate,
Okay.
circular plate.
Hmm.
Linda Ronstadt, Dr. John. Okay, I'm not sure who this is, but on the light show screen, you see a Cecily projection that is bounced off mirrors. The problem with the film at the time is that it can't really give you the subtleties.
Hmm.
And all you see is the brightest, and then it goes dark. But those are all spinning on top of each other.
Gotcha.
That's what a mirror of a liquid would look like, but not as good as it really was.
Hmm.
Allman Brothers in full flight. That was the first, second lighting designer, Candace Brightman.
Okay.
Allman Bros. Now I know this is in memory of Elizabeth Reed because that was the effect we used for the lick. We had two of them going at the same time. So whenever they play da 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 da, that big theme,
Hmm.
these would come up and spin and change color subtly.
That's a great photo.
Yeah, and I've called this hitting the note. The band had these phrases, and if they were playing really well, they would say, "Man, we were hitting the note." That's Jack Cassidy of the Airplane, bass player. Yorma of the Airplane. Ramrod taking a rest. This is the Joe's Lights Workshop. It was on Houston Street,
Okay.
and now it's a bar, I believe. And it was just this place, long, narrow basement. You know.
Oh man, I'm going to use that as a screensaver for a while. That's a great.
Okay, there
Just
I
on my
am
computer.
having lunch
Beautiful.
backstage. So this has got to be about 1969 or 70.
That's yeah, yeah. That's backstage at the Fillmore East then.
Yeah, so if you're okay, I know I can, how can I, okay, so you're at the back wall looking out towards the audience, okay,
Uh-huh.
in your plans,
Right.
okay? So to the left, that is where this is. Right, you see where the fire hose is on the right?
I do. Yes.
That's where the wall was
Right.
that separated you from the rest of the theater.
Okay.
And you see where that guy is, the two guys are in the back.
Hmm.
They are in the walkway that takes you from the theater to the backstage steps.
Okay.
And I am sitting right near there. If I get up and walk towards us, I'll be able to look out at the audience.
Gotcha.
This looks like it's early Joshua Light Show.
Is that right? Because I think he thought that was Joe's lights.
It could be.
I don't.
It could be.
Yeah, he could go
The
either way.
projector on the camera left, he's right. He's probably right.
Okay,
The projector on camera left is the widescreen projector we used to run films on.
gotcha. Yep,
There is a movie projector in the bottom of the frame in the center.
yep.
That's the one we ran the cartoons on.
All right.
The color wheel on the right, that's what throws me off. I don't know what that color wheel is for, but so I'm in the center, and camera right of me is Cecily and her
Okay.
and her machine.
And the okay, so that color wheel on the right, just
Yeah.
above that, that's the fire door, right?
The which?
Just above the color wheel is in the background is the fire door.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And
It took
and
me
there's
ever to figure that out.
yes, and the ramp. And when
Yes.
you came on, you had to walk on your very carefully down the ramp.
Yes.
When you were on this platform, it vibrated a lot, and that would get exaggerated on the screen.
Okay.
Good catch.
All right.
This is one of our stage crew members. The guy in the center with his back to you,
Uh-huh.
that's Jerry Garcia, and the guy on the is Nelson from the New Riders. So whenever the Dead played, they would come in the afternoon and play guitar and jam with the crew. That's the stage manager, Michael Ahern with Noonan.
Okay.
That's another wider shot of the jam, and that's a bunch of members of the New Riders. Oh, this is a festival. Bill Kreutzmann of the Dead. Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs and Englishmen.
Yeah, that's a great photo too.
Garcia.
Yeah.
I think that's on the earlier end of the Dead appearances because he stopped using that guitar. I don't know what that is. That's the Grateful Dead setup when they made a sound system for every instrument. That was the beast. That was like the 73, 74, and it practically broke the band.
Did you ever
Bill
hear that?
outside.
So you heard that sound system?
Oh yeah, I saw a bunch of concerts. It sounded amazing.
Okay. Okay.
Clarity of it.
Yeah.
This is Bill outside and having a nice time with people. This is a still from the Sunshine Makers. This was a cartoon that we ran between shows. Do you know about this?
Let's see. I do remember. Yeah, I do remember there was a story about it. I can't remember exactly what this.
Okay, you might want to write down Sunshine Makers.
All right.
Cartoon, and it's by Borden's, the milk company.
Okay.
And it's on YouTube. And you watch it and you'll go, oh, that's why when the Dead played there, everyone wanted this. Self-explanatory. Bad shot of Bill.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I've never seen that one.
Bill outside again now. Okay. This is Statesboro Blues.
Mm-hmm.
We always started the Almonds with this shot of a train coming across the screen. I always thought of the Allman Brothers as a big locomotive. You know, the power of it. And we had shots looking up of bridges going by.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the shot from the back of a truck looking straight up of the bridges going by above you. Gotcha. And the star is Tom flying a mirror above the road, flying a star above the road.
Amazing.
And Dwayne, wake up, mama, turn your lamp down low. You know?
Beautiful.
Bill outside again. So that's kind of the light show platform looking towards the ramp to get down.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've not seen that shot before.
So that's me. In the middle, facing us is Amelie. And behind Amelie is Bob Goddard, one of the tech geniuses.
Okay. So, okay.
Wide shot of the almonds for, Statesboro.
Hmm.
Okay, that's Bill on the right, Bill Schwarzbach. In the center is Kenny.
Gotcha.
And the guy on the left was an army friend of Bill's, Dennis. Dennis came on, and he was not really an artistic personality, but he was with us for a lot.
Hmm.
But Kenny was the guy, you know. Oh, we should hang out backstage. I think that little kid is from the Voices of East Harlem.
Oh man, that's incredible.
Noonan again, Marquis. We had nice little backstage parties. I think I was still an usher because you can see me in the crowd on the right. And that's, if you look all the way to the left, the guy with the mustache,
Mhm.
that's Jerry Pompili.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've exchanged texts on Facebook. So he
Yeah.
gave me a little bit of information about where his office was and
Yeah. So
the
that's
Bummer
Jerry.
Palace, I guess. So.
Yeah. And next to Jerry is Kiva Crystal.
Huh. Okay, I've heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah, he knew Bill, and he came over as a temporary manager of the
Okay.
place. Right next to him is, she was the accountant and everything. Garrity. I don't remember her first name right now. She later went on to work for Frank Barcelona and became a very powerful person in the booking in business.
Okay.
These are mostly ushers and so forth, and stage crew workers. Somebody's birthday.
That's a great photo.
This is a version of the Joshua Light Show. I don't know who this woman is on the left, but there's Bill with the striped shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Above Bill is Tom Shoesmith.
Okay.
Behind Tom is me, and then Dennis below me. In the middle is this crazy hippie woman who worked real hard for us named Barbie. That's Cecily on the right.
Uh-huh.
Behind Cecily in glasses is Cecily's brother. And way in the back is Becky. We had to have someone washing dishes the whole night. And
Gotcha.
Becky washed dishes for us.
All right. Do you know what is Tom Shoesmith's status now, or
He's, I think, retired.
because yeah, I mean I had what was it, Joshua had he posted a photo of Tom up in, kind of on the Lumia platform, and I had a bunch of questions for Joshua, and he finally said, just go ask him yourself. So I sent him
Okay,
an email.
I'll send you his number.
Well, okay. I mean, I sent him an email and he didn't respond, so I don't know.
Oh,
I didn't know what that meant. So, but that's all right.
there was a picture of Joe's lights that we composed.
Beautiful.
That was part of our package. There we are backstage, just hanging out. Okay, that's me on the right.
Oh, okay. I've seen that photo, but yeah, now I'm making a connection.
The
that that
guy
was you.
with the curly hair in the chair just passed away.
Hmm.
That's Michael Lang from the Woodstock Festival.
Hmm.
Me at the projectors. We used to play this game when we're waiting for bands and stuff called Noonan Ball.
Mhm.
I can't remember the rules. All right, me on the widescreen projector, Kenny in the middle, and Bill on the right. I would say this is spring of 71.
Okay.
This was the official Joe's Light handout photo. So let's go from the top, okay, in clockwise order.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a liquid in the center of that,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a straight lens onto the screen
Mm-hmm.
with a cutout. We had a lot of cutouts, so we had different shapes.
Okay.
And behind it is slides that are changing colors.
Gotcha.
To the right, so this would be about 1 or 2 o'clock. That is a Tom Shoesmith shape and a slide against a mylar. So that thing that looks like a jellyfish on the
Right.
right,
Oh, okay.
that would be moving like this. In the dead center is a liquid straight on in a longer lens with a matte and a big liquid covering the whole screen.
Mm-hmm.
On the lower left corner, that triangle,
Mm-hmm.
that is a full screen liquid being done by Cecily.
Mm.
Oh, Cecily could do that kind of precision.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's
That
what the
is
Voices of East Harlem. And all the way on the right is a series of slides that are layered and changing color.
okay. Amazing.
That's the Who.
That's a great shot. Wow.
That's the most exciting rock and roll band I've ever seen.
Is it that? Okay. I don't think that's at the Fillmore East though.
What?
Is that at the Fillmore East or?
Yep.
Yeah. Because the lights behind it are confusing me.
Yeah, they're blowing out the light show screen.
Gotcha.
Here they are, same night.
Yeah, that definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is look at those number of amps,
Yeah.
which is
They-
why I fucking can't hear anything.
and those are all real
Same
amps.
night.
Whoa, that's a
Look at
great
that.
photo. Oh my God.
Same night.
That is stunning. Do you know who took that photo?
No, it might have been
Okay.
Ben Haller. It might have been Ben.
Huh.
Either Ben Haller or Cecily. I'm sorry,
Okay.
or no, Amelie.
I'm like, gotcha.
Look at this.
Shh.
The way they would just, they are in total sync.
Yep.
Great dead look. Look at all the amps covered in tie-dyes. Classic dead shot. Same as before.
Yeah.
Okay, new riders. You see on the left is a long lens liquid in a frame,
Mm-hmm.
and the other stuff is all Tom Shoesmith reflections off of uneven mylar zooming around.
Mm. That's beautiful.
Bill Arthur Shafransky, who became Arthur Max, who was a production designer on Gladiator and many other great movies. Genius. Okay. It is 4 a.m. Notice there's no light show screen.
Oh, you pulled it up for gotcha.
When the dead would hit their peak, and I'm thinking this is Love Light or something, they'd raise the screen and all the lights would shine on the audience, and it'd be this huge communal scream out, dance out.
Oh, so you did the light show on the audience?
Yes.
Oh man,
we only did this for certain bands when there was nothing left to do but be one joyous thing.
I'm guessing there aren't any photos of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, with the Who, we would raise the screen and put arc lights on the audience.
Right. Wow.
Garcia with the light show behind him. That's a liquid, Bill liquid.
That's a great shot.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
The other way, now the screen is up, and that's the audience screaming. Okay, hallway. There's Zappa on the left.
Mm-hmm.
He is sitting on the steps to the light show.
Yes, that was very helpful to me to kind of figure out the backstage.
Yeah, and the guy in the center's name is Bleecker Bob. He owned the Village Oldies, the best record store for historical finding of music, and he was always brought rare records to Zappa, who was a record collector. And on one weekend, Zappa was on the same show with a band called Sha Na Na. Have you ever heard of Sha Na Na?
I have, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they all knew oldies, and they'd stand in this hallway and sing oldies with this together, with the sound bouncing off the hall. Good times.
Great. That's great.
There I am on the light show platform.
Great photo. Wow.
Another dead shot. This is from the front balcony aimed at the stage.
Hmm.
For some reason, the screen is very white in this photo, and I don't know why.
Hmm. And that was the big curved screen too, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah, this is the dead. We had two screens. We had the big curved one, and we had the 4x3.
okay.
That's the same shot of me, a little tighter. Now, that big curve of light, white light,
Hmm.
that's the hubcap with the bulb.
Oh, okay.
And it's just not, you're not seeing it in movement.
Gotcha.
And this is the end of the set. So sometimes Tom would just swirl it around the inside. I can tell it's the end of the set because Pigpen is standing.
Hmm.
They're all looking at Pigpen, and their name is on the screen. And I know that we're going to go to black in a second.
I think Joshua's got a little different version of what you described. He calls it a joystick, though.
That's it. That's
Is that the one?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah,
I could not remember the name of it.
yeah, yeah.
Now, the other thing that Tom would do with the joystick is he would cut out a gobo. You know what a gobo is?
Let's see. That's okay. Yeah, that's like a silhouette basically, or a mask
Right.
that you put in front of the lights.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and sometimes he would put his shapes behind it,
right.
so you'd shadow it, and he had one of a city.
Oh, wow.
So you'd see elements of the outline of the city,
Uh-huh.
and we were doing the birds one night with 8 Miles High,
Right.
and it was getting to the peak of it, and he took out the joystick and was doing the thing behind the city. So you saw boom, things like flashing above the thing, above the cityscape, big explosion. And then for the final one, he just put down the hubcap and took the thing, turned it on full. So now you had a really bright shot of the city.
Uh-huh. Oh.
And he went right into a window and turned it off. Just as he hit the window, I put up the birds. It was those kinds of things when you were in sync. It's like being in a band.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's the theater way back.
Hmm.
Lowe's Commodore, and if you look camera right a little bit, right
Mhm.
next to it, is the famous Ratner's
Okay.
dairy restaurant. And if you look to the left, there's a grocery store.
Hmm.
That's the grocery store that caught fire during the Who.
Okay. It was called Lions, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of formed a theory. I think I think the loft building was there before they built the theater.
Ah, yeah, the big tall building on the right in the center,
Uh-huh.
that's NYU.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, another great shot of the dead.
That is great.
Ike and Tina.
Incredible.
Zappa. This is before the Fillmore.
Yep. I think, yeah, actually, Joshua said that's his favorite photograph of the Joshua Light Show.
Yeah, it's a great shot.
He really likes that.
This is the Fillmore after the Wrecking Ball.
Yeah, it's got that curved vault there.
Yeah.
That well, that was obviously original to the building, but the marquee was there from the get-go. So I think that's why I think that was originally something else, and they used that as the lobby.
Okay, these are the woman on the right and the woman on the left.
Uh-huh.
Are the women who inspired Riff Randall character in Rock and Roll High School.
Oh, wow.
And the guy in the center, his name was Johnny Thunders, and he was the guitar player for the New York Dolls.
Oh, wow.
But at the time, they were just kids coming to the Fillmore.
Oh, my goodness. That's incredible.
There's me and Garcia.
Huh.
Probably 70.
Oh, okay. I've seen that photo
69,
too, and I didn't realize that was you. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Neil Young
Yeah.
during a sound check. This is the night that the Dead jammed with the Almonds and Fleetwood Mac. There's the light show at Woodstock, I think.
Okay. Yeah, there's Joshua. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, this is a really famous historical shot. Okay. This is about to blow your mind. Okay, This is in February of 1970
Mhm.
on a 3-night stand, The Dead and the Allman Brothers and Love. Okay. But Thursday night, Fleetwood Mac came by, and the sound man for The Dead on this tour was Osley, who invented Sunshine Acid.
Mhm.
And various members of Fleetwood Mac got dosed. Okay, so let's go from left to right. Standing with his hands up in the air on the far left,
Uh-huh.
that's Mick Fleetwood. And he is fucked up on acid because he ended up on the floor playing the cowbell. Okay. Slightly below him with the curly hair, you can't see his face,
Right.
is the legendary Peter Green, the guitar player,
Okay.
played with
Yeah.
John Mayall, and then fantastic. Next to him is Pigpen.
Mhm.
Next to him is Bob
Mhm.
Weir. Next to him is Dwayne Allman. On the organ is Greg Allman.
Mhm.
All the way on the far right is Mickey Hart of the Dead.
Uh-huh.
The drummer for the Allman is in the drum set towards the back. The bass player is Barry Oakley from the Allmans. The other drummer for the Dead, that's Bill Kreutzmann, and behind Kreutzmann is Jerry.
Okay.
And I think playing the tambourine, I don't know who that is.
That is such a wonderful photograph. Such a great story behind it too.
And look, all of us on the stage crew, look at the group there, jammed in watching this incredible moment.
I was gonna say, it looks
And
like they're,
on the screen is,
yeah. It's like they're sitting backstage almost. It looks like. I don't know.
no, they're standing.
They are
Yeah.
standing. Okay. Yeah. It's just the angle.
Yeah. And in the center of the light show screen is the liquid in a tight,
Mhm.
same party shot. That's Jerry. I'm on the right. Jerry on the left, Bob.
Mm.
Ramrod. That's Osley, acid maker and sound engineer. This is the Dead towards the end of a set because you see the smoke.
Mhm.
That was a guy by the name of Boots who would set off flares and cherry bombs. Delaney and Bonnie and Friends with Eric Clapton.
Mm. Very
There's
cool.
Eric on the far right.
Wow.
Nice shot. The guy with the white hair in the center, blonde hair, that's John McIntyre. He was the manager of the Dead.
Okay.
Not a good job. There's a panorama of Joe's lights.
Mm.
That's a great shot of Tom's platform.
That is. That's one I was asking a bunch of questions about, and that's the one Joshua just said. You just talk to him.
There in the center is the circular hubcap.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And the lens on the left was one of his pure light things that he would bounce off of stuff. There he's holding the mirror that he used for wings and stuff.
Wow.
And there's a gobo on the wall.
Okay. Beautiful.
This is the view looking
That
right
is
up
a
the aisle.
Yeah. That's one. I think you posted that one on Facebook, and
Yeah. So
I
what
had
you
not
got
seen
is,
that before.
okay, camera right. There's a door,
Hmm.
and above it, that's the sound booth.
Okay.
Um, you've got the downstairs amps, you got the downstairs PA, the band, and camera left, just off camera, in the same position as the right is the lighting booth, just
Okay.
off camera.
Gotcha.
And just off camera above would be the sound system for the balcony. But you can see the tops of the lights across the center.
Mhm.
So you had three. Well, okay, let's count them. You had lights from above the audience aimed at the stage.
Mhm.
You had cross lights from the sides in two different positions, right? One right above the sound booth and one closer to the stage.
Mhm.
And you had rows of backlights.
Mm.
Plus, way off behind us, way up there, was three spotlights. Backstage with Zappa. Peak moment. This is from the this is from where the spotlights were.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. So that's up in the projection booth then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there you can see the two booths. On the left, you can see the lighting booth.
Right.
And on the right, you can see the sound booth. And the reason that there is a black curtain around the back of it,
Mhm.
right, is because that's where guests would come.
Okay.
So you might have Dylan there, you might have Leonard Bernstein there, you might have my mother, whoever. This is the night that the light show screen cable broke,
Oh,
and we couldn't
wow. I've never heard that. Oh,
And this was during Mad Dogs and Englishmen. So we had 30 or 40 people in that band on stage, all the equipment, a film crew. It was nuts. And we got to the point where all we could do was just tie it off and then pull it back by hand to get the amps back and forth. It was really rough going.
mm.
On the right, looking up, that's Michael Ahern, the stage manager. Okay, you see the three guys in the center who are hauling on the rope. There's a heavyset guy on the right.
Yes.
Looking up, that's Bob C. He was in charge of all the stuff, mechanical and stage equipment and all of that. He's
Mm.
in the center, that face looking up. That was one of the lighting designers, George. But the guy with the beard also looking up on the left, that's Ben Howard. That's the guy who built the sign.
Okay.
Now, above them, there's a guy with horn rimmed glasses.
Mhm.
That's John Chester. That's one of the geniuses that designed the whole thing.
He, none of those videos I did would have been possible without him. He's the
He's
one.
great.
He still had floor plans of the Fillmore East that he copied from the city in 1968, and
Oh, that's right.
he mailed them to me. So
He's a great guy.
yeah, I'm incredibly indebted to him. So,
Neil Young in the Fillmore dressing room.
wow.
That's what it looked like on at night outside.
Very cool.
That is Hendrix rehearsing with the band of Gypsies.
Oh man.
So now you can see where the lights are that were out over the audience.
Mhm.
And there was a walkway so you could focus them.
Yep.
And during the week at night, sometimes the lighting designers would come in and work on their color patterns and stuff for the upcoming shows. Going up and down the ladder and having one or two of us stand on different lighting spots. And then the rest of the lighting spots, they put a mop upside down in a bucket, so they had looked like hair and practice. This is the Bummer Palace and the Usher's room
Okay.
outside. Cecily. Okay, this explains it all in one shot. Mirror wheel left,
Mhm.
big overhead projector.
Mhm.
And rather than aiming it right out at the screen, which would have been if she turned it counterclockwise, off camera right, she's aiming it against the mirror wheel.
Gotcha.
And that's her liquid below. That's probably red and yellow. It's probably red water, yellow oil, but I'm not sure. Waiting for tickets. Hallway. Big shows coming up. All right, every night before showtime, we'd all gather in the lobby, get our instructions. That's the whole staff.
Okay. And this was when you were an usher then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's The guy, it might be Bill in the white pants
Okay.
talking, or it might
Okay.
be Kiva. I don't. So there you go. This explains a lot. Have you seen this shot?
Yes, I have. Yeah, this is, I've
Okay.
got Amelie's book, so I think,
Yeah. So this is very helpful to you.
yeah, this was no, this was incredibly
Oh,
helpful.
I forgot that we had a spotlight on the side.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I think
I forgot.
that was originally like the organ loft, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm
But
assuming there
there's,
was another one on the other side. Yeah.
yeah, I forgot that.
So, but yeah, in terms of starting to figure out how that proscenium arch worked, this was a very
Yeah.
helpful photo. So
The lobby.
it's great.
This is New Year's Eve and just before New Year's Eve. Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You see where it says Blood, Sweat, and Tears?
Hmm.
The opening act was the Allman Brothers.
That's crazy.
First New York appearance. That's some of the crew. I don't know who she is on the right. Another shot you've seen. These are all, that's a good backstage shot.
That's a wonderful shot there. Yeah.
There's there's Josh. That's pretty much a Joshua Light show at their best.
That's actually the photograph that kind of got this whole project started. It's like I thought that was like like in front
Yeah.
of the audience somewhere on the back wall of the theater, and
Yeah.
so it's like it just took a while after hearing a few interviews and posts and kind of started piecing the puzzle back together again. But that,
Yeah. You can see the strobe in this shot.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then yeah, I didn't realize that was up in the air either. It looks like you're on the floor,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
a lot of mystery in there.
There you are. Same angle as before, walking in.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great.
Second Avenue. That's a good shot of the balcony.
Man, these look more I've seen that photograph, but not in that kind of detail. I don't know if maybe I'm
Amelie sent me these to use and get crazy.
okay. Maybe that's it. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So that, but
Dwayne and Greg. This is when it was Village Theater.
excellent.
That's me and Jimmy Page.
Hmm.
And this is our favorite dairy restaurant and the two guys who owned it. All right, that's what you got.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Oh God, what a treat. No, um, yeah. I like to say this whole thing is just kind of there was no grand plan. It just kind of all evolved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I said, I mean, I can.
So if you ever, if you ever want to expand what you have a lot of stuff now about Joe's Lights.
Yeah, no, I will definitely get Joe's Lights represented, the representation they deserve for sure. So
there is a live recording of Virgil Fox with Joe's Lights. Virgil Fox was an organ player
uh-huh.
who was like the Liberace of the organ.
Okay.
And so he performed at the Fillmore East, and we did a concert with him.
Because I think in Amelie's book, doesn't she? I think she has a series of
Yeah.
photos of Virgil Fox. So maybe
Yeah.
that's what it was from. So
Yeah.
so I will.
All right. Well, I gotta go.
All right. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for this. This has just been a complete honor. And yeah, I don't know exactly where this will go, but it'll go somewhere. I will.
All right. Now, if you go and get a copy of Blu-ray because it's only available on Blu-ray of Get Crazy,
Mm-hmm.
there is interviews with a lot of people, and they talk about the Fillmore, but it isn't exactly like it was. It's much sillier and broader, etc.
Gotcha.
But the energy and it's reminiscent.
Okay. All right. No, I will find. I'll find a copy of that one way or the other. So.
Okay.
All right.
Nice talking.
Thank you so much, Alan.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.